It's time to pat myself on the back and kick myself in my own ass. What were my best preseason predictions? And what were my worst ones? If you're new to this channel and didn't see my hilarious preseason prediction videos, you missed out. We're here to recap. So that basically means I'm just doing this to rat myself out. Nobody asked, and I'm answering. What were my best and worst preseason NFL predictions? Now, I'm going to go for a little honorable mention here. I'm also kind of ashamed of it, if we're being honest, but Kyle Pitts sucking. I was over him. Turns out he was one of the leading receivers among tight ends. Granted, it was a down year for tight ends as well. Trey McBride was the one that ascended to the top, but Kyle Pitts was like right there among the rest of the people. He had a pretty good year. I'm still not fully bought in, but Kyle Pitts, I owe you an apology. So let's get into it. My 5 worst and best preseason predictions. We're going to count down 5 to 1, starting off with one of my worst preseason predictions, that JJ McCarthy would succeed in 2025. Jonathan James McCarthy. Johnny Jimmy. Side note, Johnny Jimmy sounds like a killer name for a condom. JJ McCarthy, to be honest, was the kind of quarterback I felt obligated to like. I said for years that you can't judge a quarterback based on the system he's in, and then right away I was like, he's set up for success. Now I'm gonna reword that to make myself seem like a total coward, which still kind of holds true. If JJ McCarthy can't succeed in that offense, he's toast. Because he was really inconsistent throughout the year. He had Justin Jefferson, he had Jordan Addison, he had TJ Hawkinson, I'm pretty sure. Like I said in my last video, he fuels Justin Jefferson trade rumors with his throwing arm alone. But none of that led to consistent success. It really led to inconsistency that saw just enough good moments that he'll have truthers until the bitter end of his time in Minnesota. JJ McCarthy had an 11-12 TD to interception ratio, a 57.2 completion percentage, and only 2 starts where he topped 200 yards passing. JJ's bummer of a season, combined with the fact that Sam Darnold just made the Super Bowl, were both catalysts in Kwesi Adofo-Mensah losing his job. One of the preseason predictions I got right is a bittersweet one. Mike Evans' streak of 1,000-yard receiving years would end. It was going to happen eventually. To extend his streak, Mike Evans needed a make-a-wish moment on the very last play of the season to extend that streak, and it happened by the slimmest of margins. There were a lot of factors this year that made it difficult for him to maintain that streak. The cavalcade of receivers in the receiver room, his advanced age. Third thing that I can't quite think of right just now. But those 2 things are important. It's not totally fair to say this was a down year because he was hurt for the majority of the year. But even when Mike Evans was healthy, his production declined. So I did a little mathy math. You need 59 receiving yards per game to top 1,000 yards, and that's assuming you play all 17 games. Evans only played 8 games in 2025, and he only topped that 59-yard threshold once. Granted, he annihilated it against the Falcons with 132 receiving yards, but he didn't top it any other game in the year. His season totals of 30 receptions, 368 yards, and 3 touchdowns were all career lows. Now, I say all this, I fully respect the career of Mike Evans. I wholeheartedly believe he's a Hall of Famer. That said, father time comes for us all. It may have even come from Mike Evans, who is on a downward trajectory despite one of the most consistent careers of the 21st century. But not all my predictions were winners, though. One of my worst preseason predictions of 2025, the Commanders would have the highest scoring offense in the NFL. Oh man, did I not anticipate the level of sophomore slump that Jaden Daniels would deal with in 2025. I was egregiously high on Jaden Daniels, to the point that I made a redraft video of the 2024 draft, and I picked Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams, further proving you can't grade a draft until 3 years down the road, dumbass. Now, I was high on them getting offensive pieces like Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel, and to their credit, those players did pretty well. Unfortunately, the Commanders as a whole were one of 11 teams in the NFL to average under 21 points per game. They had the 9th fewest passing yards in the NFL as a team, and Jaden Daniels was hurt in multiple streaks of this year. Jaden Daniels played only 7 games and lost as many games in those 7 games as he lost in his rookie year where he played all 17. It was a bad season for the Commanders, who went 5-12 and are now slated to pick 7th overall in this upcoming NFL draft. At least you get a cool stadium coming up soon, but it's not all bad though, because one of my best preseason predictions, and I literally nailed this one, that Trey McBride would be a first-team All-Pro. This felt like a pretty easy bold prediction. Trey McBride's always been a stud, and he continued his ascent in 2024. Granted, it took him a while to catch a touchdown, but when he did, boy oh boy did the world explode. Though it didn't really amount to wins for the Cardinals, Trey McBride was a monster in 2025. He won the NFL Triple Crown for tight ends, as he had 126 receptions, which was 38 more than any other player, 1,239 receiving yards, which is 311 more than any other player, and 11 touchdowns, which was actually 0 more than the next player. He tied Dallas Goedert. His 126 receptions in 2025 was the NFL record for tight ends. Despite playing for one of the worst teams in the league, he was a bright spot due to his strong play and bleached blonde hair. He got a healthy $76 million extension in 2024, and even though the wins haven't piled up yet, he's paid them back handsomely. With a new coach in Mike LaFleur and potentially a new QB in 2026, no idea how that's going to play out, Trey McBride could actually see a few extra wins to go along with his massive success at tight end. But they weren't all good predictions though. One of my worst predictions of 2025 was that Javonte Williams would suck. I owe a lot of people an apology. Javonte Williams was coming into Dallas on a prove-it deal. He was let go from Denver, and all I saw him do in Denver was climb down depth charts. All he did in Dallas was separate himself from the rest of the pack and become a top 10 player in rushing attempts, yards, and TDs. Of the 12 games that Javonte Williams has had in his career with the most rushing yards, 8 of those came in 2025 alone with the Cowboys. This includes his top 2 performances of his career, where he had 135 rushing yards in week 5 and 116 rushing yards in week 7. My guy proved me wrong as hell the entire year. He's about to enter free agency, and he's going to be one of the most coveted running backs on the market. Was this a flash in the pan contract season, or was Javonte Williams actually legit? I'm too afraid to pick because I worry I'm going to have to smack myself on the ass 2 times in a row. It's not all bad though, because one of my best preseason predictions was that Tua Tagovailoa would not play the full season. Tua Tagovailoa was on a short leash in 2025, and he continued to perform well below the expectations that the Dolphins had when they picked him 5th overall in 2020. Now, new offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick is convinced that Tua can bounce back next season. Can he though? Tua had one of the worst seasons of his career, throwing a career high of 15 interceptions, which was 2nd in the league, only behind Geno Smith, who we'll see later on this list. He also had a passer rating of 88.5, which was his worst since his rookie year. He was also sacked more than he's ever been sacked in his NFL career, and he had his first ever losing record in a season. After several bad performances, Tua gave way to Quinn Ewers, who took time away from sending horny DMs to have a pedestrian 3-game stint as a starting quarterback. I also just want to throw this out there. That DM thread says business chat. It's a little funny. It's as if Quinn Ewers is delivering a sales pitch to try and get this woman to take her clothes off. Talk to my accountant. Tell him that these pictures are a tax write-off. But they aren't all good predictions though, because one of my worst predictions going into 2025 was nearly everything to do with the Seattle Seahawks. I think a lot of people were wrong about this one, because as it turns out, the Seahawks offensive line improved dramatically, and after a successful stint in Seattle, Geno Smith then went to Las Vegas and became the worst quarterback in the league this year. Sam Darnold was a guy, however, that I was not sold on because of the system he was going into. I didn't believe that losing DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett would be beneficial for Sam Darnold, didn't believe in their offensive line. All he had was JSN and Cooper Kupp, and JSN blew me the away. Because going into the season, I thought Geno Smith was going to be good. I thought Sam Darnold was going to be not as good. Now Sam Darnold is heading to the Super Bowl, and Geno Smith was so bad that the Raiders will now be picking a new franchise quarterback at number 1 overall. I also predicted that Sam Darnold would be the most sacked quarterback quarterback in the NFL this year, but he had less than half of the sacks that Geno Smith took, who, by the way, led the NFL! Geno Smith led the league in picks as well, while Sam Darnold led the league in viral doppelgangers. Now, I was pretty high on JSN going into this year, but I didn't think that he was going to out Cooper Kupp. JSN had nearly 1,800 receiving yards and was a first-team All-Pro. And I liked their chances if Sam Darnold fully established himself, but I wasn't positive that he was going to do that. I'm bummed at myself for that prediction, but I'm happy for the Seahawks. Wasn't all bad, though. Did make some good predictions, such as the Chiefs being unseeded as AFC West division champions. The only reason I didn't put this at number 1 was because I thought they were still going to be a playoff team, and anyone who said they're not going to be a playoff team in 2025 prior to the season would have been called crazy. You would have been crazy not to think that. This team relied on one-score games for their wins in 2024, but in 2025 they relied on one-score games for their losses. They were 1-9 in one-score games, even with Patrick Mahomes playing objectively good football. The roster around him was just not up to par. The run game was below average, with the 8th fewest rushing yards in the NFL and only one occurrence of a player having a rushing yardage total of at least 6-7. It was Kareem. The passing offense wasn't terrible, especially when Rashee Rice came back, but it also wasn't his usual self. As a result of the disappointing play, the Chiefs were overtaken by the Broncos and the Chargers in the AFC West standings. And that's even with the Chargers offensive line being made of toenail clippings. Now, to cap off this video, I'm not going to say my worst one, then my best one. I don't want to go out on top like that. I'm going to say what my best one was and then what my worst one was, because I want to make sure that you leave this video possibly hating me. My best preseason prediction was that Brian Daboll would be a mid-season firing. I felt pretty good about this prediction. Predicting a mid-season firing before the season even starts is a pretty big deal. It was the only one I predicted. I actually predicted Brian Callahan would be given the whole season. That felt ridiculous. The Giants had a formidable schedule to begin the year, and in the battle of Daboll and Goliath, Goliath prevailed. Brian Daboll went 2-8 with shocking wins over the Chargers and Eagles, but losses to the Broncos and Bears, where they both feature the Giants coughing up leads, the former of which was incredibly significant. Even the Giants' win against the Eagles featured Brian Daboll getting fined 6 figures because he went to check on Jackson Dart in the medical tent after watching Russell Wilson throw one pass. Daboll was fired after the loss to Chicago. Now, granted, my preseason prediction was that he'd be fired by the end of October. And I like to think that November 10th is pretty goddamn close. Brian Daboll is now an offensive coordinator with Tennessee, where he will attempt to develop Cam Ward into a legit stud of a quarterback the same way he was able to develop Josh Allen. I like Daboll himself, and I think he'll be really good for Cam Ward, but he truly regressed in each of his seasons with the Giants. Brian Daboll is a great offensive mind, but it's hard not to say that John Harbaugh isn't a massive upgrade for the G-Man. But what was my worst prediction of 2025? We're gonna crown that jewel right here. My worst preseason prediction of 2025 was that the worst division in the NFL would be the AFC South. Holy do I owe the AFC South an apology. I legit thought this division would be loads of ass, with the Texans maybe being good this year. Good work, Schubert. Your parents are so proud. You pursue content creation as a legitimate endeavor, and this is how you repay them. Wonderful. Every team in this division succeeded for different reasons. The Jags had a Coach of the Year candidate unlock his QB1 and lead the Jags to an improbable 13-4 record on the heels of an 8-game winning streak to end the regular season. To say it was all just them would be an irresponsible misstep. The Texans had arguably the best defense in the NFL. The Colts won a Super Bowl if you stopped watching the NFL after Week 10. Hell, even Cam Ward made legitimate progress for the Titans as his rookie season went on as Tennessee's signal caller. After a legitimately good season with every team in the division on the rise, the AFC South proved me wholeheartedly wrong this season. I'll get my shit together for next season. And that'll do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to my good takes and my bad takes, mostly my bad takes. If you like this video, you can give it a like, you can subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the sexiest sports content on the internet. But for now, stay tuned for more sports content that you didn't ask for.